I'm sure with a couple of these ETF listings that actually took place earlier this week, there are two major questions that ADA holders have. One, when are we going to get our ADA spot ETF listings? Secondly, what type of impact is that going to have on price when it comes to ADA? And I want to talk about that in this video with you guys because I took some time to read through the actual S-1 filing from Grayscale. I looked through some other information as well. What I found is that these could in fact go live any day. And I want to talk about that in this video with you guys. So if you are new or haven't already, show your support for the channel down below. Hit that subscribe button, that bell. It's free to do. It'll keep you updated anytime there's new content live here on the channel. So first of all, what type of impact can an ADA ETF and the spot ADA ETF have on price? And it's really tough to tell. And the reason why is because we haven't really had any major track record when it comes to altcoin ETFs out of the Ethereum spot ETFs. And I have to say that, Ethereum has seen quite a bit of institutional demand. Just in history, for example, if we take a look at some of the individual players, I mean, we're talking about right here, $16.41 billion in Ethereum actually purchased by Grayscale. By BlackRock. 4.13 billion that Grayscale has. Obviously, they had some and they've done some unloading in the early part of this. Fidelity, 3.17 billion. The Grayscale Smaller Trust, 3 billion, right? So we have seen hundreds of millions to billions of dollars of accumulation by many of these institutional players. And obviously right now with ADA sitting at $23 billion market cap, that would move price significantly. All right. That is a lot of liquidity entering ADA. This is where you could frankly see ADA run into very easily some of those price ranges like we talked about, the $7 to $15 range. And I'm not saying it's going to get the same amount of demand as Ethereum. Obviously, Ethereum is larger. It's been around longer. There's more users on chain. There's more projects currently. But what we're seeing is Cardano obviously gain a lot of traction. We're seeing obviously big steps with Midnight, like we talked about earlier, a lot of partnerships there. We're seeing different use cases for Cardano emerge that have emerged over the course of this market cycle. But I think that Cardano is being looked at by many enterprises and governments throughout the world. And obviously further use case, further interest creates obviously more institutional demand. So maybe that's something that comes for ADA over time. It's not something I'm saying it's going to, hit right out of the gate and it's going to, impact ADA that way. But over time, that demand can in fact increase. But the first thing that we obviously need to see is an ADA spot ETF listing. Now, I did take the time to actually look through this S-1 filing that took place back on August 29th by Grayscale, and I found something very interesting here. So it said, in connection with this registration statement on February 20th of 2025, NYSE ARCA filed an application with the SEC pursuant to Rule 19b-4 under the Security Exchange Act of 1934 as amended to list the shares of Grayscale Cardano Trust ETF. As of the date of this filing, the 19b-4 application has not been approved by the SEC. The trust makes no representation as to when or if such approval will be obtained. The trust will not seek effectiveness of this registration statement, and no offering of shares hereunder will take place unless and until such approval is obtained or determined by the trust that such approval is no longer necessary. This prospectus Prospectus has been prepared on the basis that the Rule 19b-4 application has been approved by the SEC, or the SEC has otherwise approved generic listing standards which would permit the listing of the trust shares on the New York Stock Exchange ARCA. So here's the thing. With this generic listing rules, which Cardano qualifies for, they can list this at any time. They are at the point where, frankly, they don't need an SEC approval. And maybe I'm wrong, but it sure looks like I'm right from what has been said by that SEC announcement and what is actually in this S-1 application or the S-1 filing by Grayscale. They are not right now requiring an SEC approval to actually get an ETF product onto the market. Now, what does need to happen is they do in fact need to file their Form 8A, which for those that aren't familiar, the ETF listings that took place earlier this week, for example, the Canary Capital ones, their filings were actually done on Monday and they went live on Tuesday. So, or what was it, Tuesday? Monday? Anyways, basically the point I'm trying to make is within 24 hours of this form filing, they were live, they were listed, they were trading. Okay. So that is a very big deal. This could in fact mean that we're about to see this big wave of ETF listings just kind of out of the blue, out of nowhere. Now, something else that you need to know about as well is when the SEC actually made this different pathway to get to ETF listings, they set this window of 60 to 75 days. Basically, 75 days is the maximum filing to listing. So if we look back at this Grayscale filing here back on August 29th, 60 days from that is what? Today. And obviously give or take a day based on the 30th and 31st of a month. But the point I'm trying to make is that they've reached kind of the earlier threshold of that window, and there's an extension basically 15 days beyond there. So we might be within a couple weeks of this. Now, I understand that with the government shutdown, this window has technically been put on delay for the time being. But again, you're not even necessarily requiring this SEC review process because ADA actually meets all these ruling listings, if that makes sense. So we might, again, just kind of out of nowhere, see these listings just boom, pop up out of nowhere. And this isn't just ADA, but this is other assets in the space as well. Now, the reason that these other ones were able to get through is because they were actually able to submit these applications within the government shutdown. And there was actually a delay amendment in them that allowed them to go live after 20 days without actually needing an SEC approval. So it's a little bit different of a process for the ones that actually went live. But I thought this was very interesting. I was kind of going through the weeds this morning and looking at all this information. And again, these may pop up while the government is still in a shutdown. I don't know when this government shutdown is going to end, but I thought this was very interesting nonetheless. And I'm curious to what you guys think. Are we going to get an ADA spot ETF listing live here in 2025? Are we going to see this just pop up randomly? Are we actually waiting for this government shutdown to conclude? I think if the government shutdown concludes, I think within probably a couple weeks, some people have suggested within 4 weeks, but I think within a couple weeks, we're going to start seeing these listings pop up all over the place. And yes, I believe it's going to have a major impact on the market. So I appreciate you guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts below, but have a great day. Catch you guys in the next one. Take care.